Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today we're going to read some Quo sessions that deal specifically with magic and ritual magic. Quo discusses magic often. We've discussed the magical personality, which is really the higher self, and there has been additional discussion throughout the Quo and Law of One material about the nature of magic, the differences between dark and white magic, and it is a little different than what you might get from other magical texts, but obviously there is a basis of magic. I believe they used magical rituals and ceremonies in evoking Ra when they originally did the Law of One material, and they ask Quo about it in this session delivered January 19th, 2008. Quo is a principle, a group of different entities channeling together sort of through LL research. And you can check out my other episodes where we've gone into depth about Quo. There is some amazing insight that can be derived from these. They're basically only able to ask questions, and just much like Ra. And in many ways, this is as good or better than the Ra material. The question this week, Quo, is what is your opinion of the use which ritual magic makes of repeated ritualized behavior to seek and serve the Creator? It seems to utilize the doubling effect in that each repetition of the ritual seems to increase the seeker's desire and purity to seek and serve the Creator. Would Quo please describe how we as seekers of truth can bring this kind of magic into our daily lives? Carla Channeling says, we are those known to you as the principle of Quo. Greetings in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator in whose service we come to you this evening. May we express to you our delight at the privilege of being asked to join your circle of seeking and take part in this working. We are very happy to share with you our thoughts on the devotional life that is how to create a life that dwells within the precincts of white ritual magic, as the one known as Jim has asked. However, as always, we would preface our remarks by asking each who hears or reads these words to take responsibility for discriminating as each listens to what we would have to say. Take what seems good to you and leave the rest behind. Please do not make the mistake of thinking that all that we say is equally important to you, for spiritual seeking is very idiosyncratic. There will be those thoughts that are helpful to you and those thoughts that do not fit your process as it is. You only need those things that make you feel a resonance and wish to ponder them further. If you'll discriminate, then that will free us to offer our thoughts without being concerned that we might infringe upon your free will or be a stumbling block in the way of your process. We thank you for this consideration, my friends. We would further preface our remarks by saying that the basis of all of these thoughts which we offer to you this particular evening is love. One can move into a great many complexities and details in discussing how to live a life that is grounded in love and based upon the awareness that all are one and all things are the Creator. Yet underlying every complexity and every detail is a single simple truth: the one infinite Creator and you and all that there is are one thing. It is a unified creation, and the nature of that unity is love. Unconditional love is the one great original thought that has generated all the seen worlds and all of the unseen worlds as well. Your question, my brother, moves into that area where the seeker has awakened so thoroughly that he has begun to seek to express the fruits of his new awareness. We do not need to remind each that the prerequisite for working to create a magical ritual of the entire life is an open heart. And the prerequisite for having an open heart is a freely flowing chakra body, with the lower chakras balanced and open and full power moving through into the heart and thence through the upper chakras and out the crown of the head. When you become aware that this is not the case in your momentary estimation of your state of mind, then there is the need to relinquish the magic personality and move into that balancing mode where that trigger which has taken you away from an open energy system and an open heart is identified, loved, accepted, embraced, and balanced. Then, and only then is it wise to move back into the ceremonial dance of the devotional life. We use the term devotional life because it is this instrument's term for life in which the principles of ritual magic of the white ceremonial kind are brought into the daily life, and it is a phrase that is easier for us to say. Therefore, please understand that when we speak of the devotional life, we are not speaking specifically of a Christian life or any type of belief system that would be behind living a life of devotion to the one infinite Creator. We are simply taking the shortcut of this instrument's vocabulary for describing the life in which the entity sees not only the possibility, but the need for imbuing every aspect of the normal, everyday life with magic. As the one known as Jim has said, the basic work of the magician is to create changes in his consciousness by an act of will. He does this very specifically in order to serve. There is nothing physically connected with the white ritual magic tradition. All the work that is done is work in consciousness. The work consists of invocation. One invokes one's own magical personality, and then one invokes characteristics of the Creator or the Creator itself. We may illustrate the principles of this type of magic by looking at the ritual that this instrument calls Holy Communion or the Holy Eucharist. The ritual is conducted by a priest. The priest prepares the congregation by reading from holy works, offering prayers and supplications, and then leading the congregation in a general confession of sins. In this confession, all is laid before the one infinite Creator, given away by the self, emptying the self of all that is past. The priest then absolves those in the congregation, reminding them that Jesus the Christ came to love rather than to judge, and that all is forgiven. Thusly, he prepares the congregation for the reception of the Holy Communion. He then turns his back to the congregation, or in some churches simply turns his mind and his attention away from the congregation, and he begins to pray directly to the one infinite Creator. He remembers the actions of the one known as Jesus Christ, in which the Christ is breaking bread and drinking wine with his disciples. He tells them, "Take this bread, it is my body. Take this wine, it is my blood." And as he remembers this, with his priestly hands hovering over the bread and the wine he is about to give the congregation, he invokes the presence of Jesus the Christ, that it may enter into the substance of the bread and the wine. Magically then, it becomes a living host, a living carrier for new life. As the congregation takes this bread and this wine from his hands, again, he says, "The bread of life, the cup of salvation." And that repetition brings the energy of Jesus the Christ into the awareness of each of the congregation as they eat the body and drink the blood that has set them free to live a new life, unencumbered by past sins. We describe this ceremony or ritual to you in some detail because we wish you to see the kind of change that a magical ritual is intended to offer. It is intended to create a change in consciousness, or as this instrument would say, a change in vibration. The intent is to lift the natural default vibration of each of the congregation by invoking the presence of the one infinite Creator in the persona of Jesus the Christ. The everyday life is not spent in church and in the workaday world. Each seeker must choose to be his own priest. Each seeker is fully capable of taking on priesthood. Yet, we would suggest to the seeker who wishes to live a devotional life that he become more and more finely tuned to an awareness of this momentary decision to become the priest rather than the lay person. For there is a qualitative difference between the actions of a lay person and the actions of a priest. When one is a lay person, one is framing the self without any particular power, metaphysically or spiritually speaking. When one styles himself as a priest, on the other hand, he styles himself as an entity who has become able to handle sacred things and to pray directly to the one infinite Creator and be heard. You are naturally priests. The unnatural frame of mind in terms of your deeper nature is that of the lay person. Yet your culture has trained you all of your life to give your power away to authority figures such as priests. Therefore, as you set out to live a devotional life, we ask that you take seriously the responsibility of priesthood. When you do not feel priestly, then it is well for you to refrain from expressing the form of any ritual. It is essential that the essence of the ritual precede and inform the form. Otherwise, the ritual is dead and does not have power. It is not necessary, my friends, to be extremely judgmental or overly critical of the self as to whether or not the self is open-hearted and working with an open energy body system. Indeed, after a certain amount of practice at remaining in this frame of mind of the priest at all times, it shall become familiar enough to the seeker that there is no longer the concern for whether or not one is in tune. This is due to the fact that once an entity has become accustomed to living in a priestly manner, any aberration from that tenor of mind will be all too obvious to the entity and will constitute that which needs attending as though it were a pain in the body. It is for the beginner that we offer these warnings. We place them here because it is essential that seekers see the difference between actions and essence. One may speak in a ritualistic ways and move in ritualistic motions and yet fail to live a magical life because the heart is not open and love is not flowing. As the one known as Paul said, without love, I'm a clanging gong. The most intricate of rituals is always founded on love. That is the prerequisite. Therefore, we encourage each to do the work necessary to support a devotional life. There are all too many of your peoples that have sought the life of a religious recluse because of the great yearning for the infinite Creator, yet because the form remained that which was understood and not the essence, the hunger remained and even grew, despite the monastic schedule of 6 worship services in each day. That being said, let us look at some ways to think about the devotional life lived in the rush of the workaday world. In a way, it seems an odd fit to make of the everyday functions of life a ritual. Yet each and every portion of the life is entirely prone to and grateful for sacred use. In order to illustrate this, we would take an example from this instrument's own life. Each day, this instrument and the one known as Jim come together at the end of their working day for a bath. This instrument has physical limitations which make it helpful for the one known as Jim to interact with her far more than most husbands and wives interact when bathing. The one known as Jim draws the bath, opens the oils and lotions that will be needed after the bath, and places them ready and invites this instrument into the bathtub. He helps her sit down, and together they enjoy their whirlpool and the cleansing of their bodies. When they are both clean before they leave the bathtub, the one known as Jim takes 2 pieces of ice in holders and for 2 minutes ices the instrument's back, which alleviates the arthritic pain in her shoulders and spine. When this has been done, the instrument lets the water out of the bath and puts the shampoos and other accoutrements of the bath away, and then is helped out of the bathtub by the one known as Jim. He helps her rub oil into her body, dries her off, and then puts lotion on her body, working to replenish sensitive skin that always is very dry. At the end of their bath ritual, they are both clean. The instrument has accomplished all that she needs to accomplish with the help of the one known as Jim, and in all of that intricate movement, there have been no words, for each knows the dance, and each makes of the dance as graceful and beautiful a thing as can be conceived by both of them. Here it may be seen that the form of the ritual is very homely. There is nothing special about the ingredients of this ritual. They are soap, water, oil, and so forth, yet the love that streams between husband and wife, as the one known as Jim helps this instrument with her daily cleansing, is palpable and powerful and supports and encourages each in his own individual metaphysical life. There are 2 things that we would note about this ritual before moving on. Firstly, the one known as Carla during the whirlpool portion of the bath actively works with angelic presences, mentally expressing her love, thankfulness, and joy, and rededicating herself to the service of the one infinite Creator. By doing so, she charges the water, acting as a priestess for both, although this is too often never spoken. Secondly, the dance of the bath moves into the succeeding moments of dressing and moving into the next item of the day in ways which link and tie in the energies of love, cooperation, and mutual participation in the dance, so that the dance does not end when the bath water is drained. In ritual, there are two kinds of form. There is the form of movement and there is the form of words. Behind these forms of motion and speaking lie the thoughts of the magician who is speaking and acting. To a magician, there is no empty action. The dance is always ongoing, and at the very center of the dance, always, there is love. The magician invokes aspects of love, standing on a plinth of love, surrounded by love, and seeking only finer and more sensitive attunements of that love. There are a finite number of movements and words within any day. There are a finite number of repeated activities which lend themselves to ritual. Consequently, to an entity whose mind is focused on filling the form of his day with the essence of worship, it is not an exceedingly long process of thought to visualize every single repeated action of a normal day. Each entity's day will be unique to him. However, the work he does in a day will have certain aspects of it that are repeated. Therefore, the seeker who wishes to create the devotional life in the midst of the workaday world shall set his mind to analyzing each action of his day at work, at home, and on the road. The one known as Carla, for instance, has in her work environment the computer. All of her work is done on the computer. The one known as Jay, on the other hand, has in his working environment various types of large equipment, such as mowers, blowers, and weed eaters. It does not seem to the untrained mind that computers and mowers would be likely targets for a devotional life. Yet we would suggest to you that whatever the nature of your work environment is, you can fill it so full of devotional essence that your workaday world positively sings. Most entities have a transitional environment between work and home because of the omnipresence of the automobile or other forms of transit. Most entities work in a place that is not their home, and this, too, is a type of environment that at first glance seems inimical to being part of a devotional life. Yet we assure you that creative thought about the essence of the time of driving or the time of riding shall offer to the mind of the seeker repeated actions which may be infused with the invocation of deity. All motions may be thought of as a sacred dance. All words may be thought of as sacred ritual. It is in the home environment, however, that most of the fully repetitive actions of the day are performed. The washing of the clothes, the washing of the self, the preparation and eating of food, the preparation for bed and sleep time, and the rising from sleep are all inevitable in their repetition. Consequently, they offer the deepest resources for one who wishes to live in a devotional life. This instrument and the one known as Jim have long created times of offering and worship at the beginning and end of the day. They have also formed the habit of remembering before food is ingested to thank the one infinite creator and to thank the food. These are far more outer in terms of the type of ritual than the kind of ritual of which we have been speaking. And yet it is helpful in this devotional life to set aside times that are specifically dedicated to worship. This enables the seeker to deepen his base of insight as time goes on. It is possible in this way to create of the life a dance that is an invocation of the one infinite creator. The element of repetition is a substantial part of a magical ritual. Something that is done once, no matter how beautiful, remains single. When that beautiful thing begins to be repeated, there is indeed the doubling effect. That is, each doing of that repetition with full awareness of its sacredness doubles the power of that ritual. The one thing that is missing in terms of this repetition when the priest is creating his own sacred life rather than being a part of a group ritual is that he is not calling a significant amount of the entities who have shared in that same ritual. For instance, in Holy Communion or the Holy Eucharist, many of the words of that service have been expressed in relatively undistorted form for centuries on end. Therefore, when an entity begins to pray in any one of the key prayers of that ritual, such as Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, heaven and earth are full of thy glory. Glory be to thee, O Lord Most High. A significant amount of those who have been Christians in incarnation and who are now between incarnations living in the inner planes are drawn to those words. so that one entity saying that particular prayer can excite and attract a tremendous amount of heavenly help with the repetition of that prayer with heartfelt energy. Contrariwise, one who is living a devotional life that he has created himself is doubling his own power, but not calling a large amount of those who dwell in the inner planes between incarnations, with one exception. Angels are not drawn to a particular song or a particular set of words. Angels are drawn to pure essence, having never taken part in incarnation. Consequently, any living of a devotional life will attract angelic help, so that there is indeed not only the doubling effect of amplification of one's personal power, but the supporting and undergirding effect of angelic support and encouragement. In closing, we would simply say that we cannot reiterate often enough the importance of moving from love and from essence in creating a devotional life. There is not love in the repetition of holy things, then that energy, while not wasted, is diminished in its power to comfort, heal, and succor the seeker. Therefore, do not be caught up in the forms of devotional life, but rather be caught up in the emotions engendered by having an open heart and an open energy body and experiencing the self as part of the dance of the one that is ongoing, because he exists in that creation in which all things are indeed one coordinated eternal dance. We are those of Quo and would ask if there's a follow-up query, my brother. Jim says no. Then R asks, Quo, I keep racking my brain for some question because I hate to let you go, but I do not have one, so I'll just say that I appreciate the brothers and sisters of Sarvo. We are those of Quo and are aware of your non-question, yet you have asked for a little more of our time, and because this instrument continues to have energy to offer a few more of your minutes, we would speak freely, if it is at all right with you. And they say, please. Very well, my brother. There is in this season of the year, that is winter, much joy in the one known as R, while many others have exactly the opposite feeling about the weather being cold. So there is at all times a multiplicity of people, a multiplicity of opinions, and a seemingly variegated and splintered world where many things seem out of tune in the service to self-faction of your population dominates the news with wars and rumors of wars, the misuses of power being almost endless. Yet this appearance is an illusion. Certainly as the days of third density wane and come to a close, those who are seeking to graduate in negative polarity are working very hard to create as much service to self-polarization in their lives as possible. These are the entities that gather power for its own sake, that enjoy sending men to their death in the pursuit of policy, and that do not blink at lying, stealing, and cheating, simply saying, it's just business. It is easy for service to others' entities to become distressed when gazing at what seems to be the way of the world. We would suggest that this seeming way of the world is only large in aspect because of the way your culture values information. It is as though your mass media functions by a kind of radar, which only picks up certain kinds of vibration. In terms of your radar imaging, for instance, that which is metallic and magnetic is picked up and shown on the radar as a blip. Many other things are in the sky, but the radar does not read them. Radar is set to read the objects which occupy a very small amount of the air and report only on them. Nevertheless, all of the sky is still there. In much the same way, your mass media only pick up as blips those entities which have disturbed the continuum by the misuse of power, whether it be sending off entities to die for policy, or whether it be one entity who turns and shoots another. There are the things that create and constitute the blips that are reported on in the mass media. Meanwhile, all the rest of human nature remains unreported. My friends, you are wonderful people. The vast majority of those upon planet Earth at this time seek with all their hearts to be good people by their own lights. We ask that each of you take the time to be aware of the good people in your life. The person that sold you something at the drugstore or grocery store, the person that helped you repair something that was wrong with your house or your apartment, the people that let you into traffic on a busy street, and the people in your neighborhood whom you see walking their dogs and chatting in their front yards. Each and every one of these entities is suffering and yet seeks with all its heart to live a good life and to serve others. We ask that you begin to deepen your appreciation of that which lies below the radar and begin to give less power to the loud voices of your media as they report on that which, if it bleeds, it leads. In another question delivered on May 10th of 2008, they ask, this question this evening is about sexual energy exchanges. From the raw contact, we know that two factors which enhance the exchange are extended foreplay, which increases the amount of energy transferred, and both partners dedicating themselves to service to others, which doubles the energy transfer. Also, simultaneous orgasm allows the transfer to be most efficient. Please speak to the spiritual nature of sexual energy exchanges and how they enhance our magical personalities. Carla Channeling says, we are those known to you as the principle of Quo. We greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator in whose service we come to you this evening. In speaking of sexual energy exchange, we need to first move back and prepare the ground, as it were, by offering some thoughts concerning the nature of the energy body and the nature of energy exchanges. Your energy body is far more full of your essence in the metaphysical sense than is your physical body. It is the body from which your physical body takes its form, but it is non-physical, being electrical in nature. You can think of the universe as a whole, as a field of energy, infinite and mysterious. Contained within that vast and unimaginable creator field lie the fields of the galaxies, the suns, the planets, and the entities upon those planets, such as yourself. As you step down orders of magnitude to go from creator to sub-logos, the sub-sub-logos, the sub-sub-sub-logos, yet still, the one infinite creator is replete in every position, every portion, every energy field, and every iota of the creation. Since all is one, each portion of the one is a hologram of the one. The very cells of your body are full of the information of the creator and the created. Your energy body is the governing field of your mind, body, and spirit. It joins the physical body at some time around physical birth, willingly and consciously interpenetrating the physical body that is the opportunity for a lifetime of experience within the illusion of planet Earth. Throughout your life, then, your energy body and your physical body are indistinguishable in terms of any worldly observation or scientific ability to measure the potential difference betwixt the physical and the metaphysical. It is the energy body that feeds the perceptions of the physical body. As the physical body, mind, and emotions gather catalyst and experience the harvest of those thoughts and emotions moves into the energy body in an endless loop. Your energy body is fed by the logos. In local terms, it is fed by the energy of your sun, which pours its light, its energy, and power into the earth. Planet Earth, your mother, receives this energy in infinite amounts and sends it from the very heart and womb of the earth in a radiating pattern from the very core of the planet, outward in every direction, coming up through the ground so that you may absorb it with your feet as you walk upon the earth. It enters the energy body at the joining of the legs, which is the seat of the red ray chakra, the first of the 7 chakras that together comprise your energy body. This infinite love light of the Creator that streams into the red ray will, if not baffled, blocked, or narrowed, move freely and powerfully into the heart, letting the heart open and bloom like a flower, whereby setting the stage for a potential for work in consciousness. Work in consciousness can only take place when the red ray, orange ray, and yellow ray are open and the energy of the Creator is running freely through them, for this is the energy that feeds the heart. When it is limited or constricted, the magical personality shall find itself on very short rations. Once the seeker has set his intention to do work in consciousness, then the higher rays become involved. The blue ray of communication, the indigo ray of faith and being, and of course the green ray of healing and unconditional love. It is to be noted that it is not necessary, in order to be of service to others and to graduate from third density, for the higher rays to be used in order to access the gateway to intelligent infinity. Simple, straightforward, unconditional love and the energies of forgiveness and compassion shall carry any seeker through graduation with flying colors. That is far more than enough to use in order to penetrate those energies that move one into higher light. However, you as a metaphysical being within incarnation were indeed given the ability to use the higher chakras and to do work in consciousness. The infinite love light of the one creator moves upward, whereas it is the intention set by the magical personality that calls the energy from above down to meet the infinite love light of the one creator moving upward. Where those two energies meet is the location where the seeker is able to accomplish work in consciousness, whether it be healing, channeling, or the radiancy of being. So whether we are speaking of healing, the green ray energy, or communication, the blue ray energy or radiancy of being, the indigo ray, we speak of one process whereby a seeker decides to set his intention to become a priest, a minister of light, and to take upon himself the responsibility of using his power rightly. Sacred sexuality lies within the precincts of the indigo ray and indeed moves into the mystery of the violet ray. It calls down inspiration and information from the Godhead principle itself, that great logos that is unconditional love, into the heart of that which joins the physical and metaphysical being, sexuality. The potential of sexuality is that it may be sacred. The beginnings of sexuality are simple and primal. Consequently, as the priest and the priestess together set their intentions to invite the Creator into the equation of their electrical circuitry, they call down the logos itself. Yet it begins with the simplest sexual chemistry, that attraction that is purely red ray, and that has been so sturdy in its efficiency of propagating the species of humans on planet Earth. The first point that one known as Jim made concerning sexuality is that it is helpful to prolong foreplay, and we would speak on this to an extent and explore why this is so. As the two who have set their intent come together, they have simply their intent. They have not developed a structure, metaphysically speaking, in which they express their intent. Whatever two entities do after they have set their intent to share sacred sexuality can be considered foreplay. The ritual of the date is very helpful in this regard. As each of you talked around the circle before meditation this night, each has expressed the feeling of being so terribly busy that he almost cannot catch his breath. The world lies heavy upon the shoulders of those who must earn the living and fulfill the duties of the day. There's a great deal to lay down before one can engage in sacred play. There is much to release of the world and the grime and the weariness of the world. And so the two meet, perhaps over a dinner or sharing a glass of wine or coffee, a simple meeting of the eyes and the voices, and each talks perhaps about the day, about the concerns, the burdens and feelings of the world weariness and ennui. And as these are spoken, the energy opens up and the rays begin to clear. What is not usually understood about red ray is that it is not only the ray of sexuality, but also the ray of survival. It is the ray in which you must say either yes or no to life itself. Many are those whose feelings of depression and unhappiness for various reasons has begun to shut down or at least narrow that red ray. Somehow sharing these woes with another whose ears are open to listen begins to get the red ray open again, begins to make life seem good again. The colors brighten, energies lift, and the conversation goes on. Much is shared on a personal level, opening up the orange ray, and if there is between the two the sacrament of marriage, yellow ray is also penetrated. And as the affairs of that particular relationship are discussed, that ray begins to open and relax as each supports each. Finally, each can feel the heart opening because of the gratitude that is felt for the company of the other. Now perhaps there has been a shift in the location, the amount of privacy. Perhaps this is the time when the two lovers become intimate, clothes are shed, the outside world falls away, and the talk deepens. Whatever is said in this opening into the blue ray has begun to take on the quality of sacredness as each listens in complete sympathy and support to what the other has to say. The world seems to brighten more and more. The energy lifts and moves towards the indigo ray, the ray of faith and magic, where two beings may become magical together. When that moment arrives where touch is involved, you can see that there has been a great deal of preparation. Sacred sexuality is not casual in any way. It is as structured as any magical ritual. Yet it is structured within the sensibilities of two priests who are invoking the one infinite creator as they invoke that connection that is the essence of sexual congress. We mentioned before that your energy body is an electrical body. As electricity has its path, so your energy body has its points of contact, which can form a circuit betwixt two energy bodies, making them one. Those openings are at the lips, the hands, the feet, the groin, and the breasts. If two hold hands, they are able to exchange sexual energy. If they touch lips, they're able to express sexual energy. If any of those elements touch sexual energy circuits between the two, when one thinks of sacred sexuality, one needs to think in terms of the closing of those circuits. By the time the first touch occurs, there's been a good deal of power built up by the anticipation of the pleasure of touch. In this regard, the focus of the two entities involved is the key to ratcheting up the amperage of the contact betwixt the two. Indeed, the instrument has often found it useful to visualize the circuit that has been closed, seeing how it changes color and intensity, how it is infinite in its play as it touches each, and each creates ways to make the other feel good. It was intended by the Creator that sexuality had the potential of offering to third-density entities an experience of the steady state of the Creator, which would be described by third-density entities as orgasm. This is the steady state of the universe. This is the power of unconditional love. This is the engine that drives creation. This is the sunlight that falls upon you. It too is the fusion of the priest and the priestess expressing unconditional love in a steady state. As a priest and priestess who are mated become more experienced each with each other, there begin to be refinements on the art of touching, on the nuances of intimacy, so that each can bring the other very close to the point of orgasm and then remain there, playing with that energy, fueling it, playing it again and fueling again, not feeling the need to move to orgasm. We believe this is what the one known as Jim had in mind when he spoke of prolonging foreplay, and this is certainly the majority part of being able to move up in orders of magnitude in terms of the brilliance and the power of the energy exchange involved. However, it is never to be forgotten that all the energy centers are involved in sacred sexuality. One cannot play in the fields of the Lord if one does not have the lower chakras running well, glad and free and open, accepting life and all that it offers. It is indeed so that when both entities, the priest and the priestess, have consciously dedicated their lives to the service of the one infinite Creator, this doubles the power available to each. This is according to the way of doubling or squares, as in many of the other kinds of energies. When there are two who seek together, the power of that seeking is doubled. And we would certainly agree with the one known as Jim that when there is simultaneous orgasm between the priest and priestess, the energy exchange is at its most brilliant, focused, and collected. It is certainly the most lucid way to experience the fusion of self with self and self with Creator. Yet at the same time, we would note that it is possible to have a powerful energy exchange without orgasm simply because of the intention of the mated pair and their dedication of the time of pleasure and feeling good to the service of the one infinite Creator. There are many among your people who have been well mated and who no longer are able to share the sexuality in the way of their youth. This is in no way inhibiting their ability to exchange sexual energy, to make each other feel good and to have sacred play. Sacred sexuality begins with the person's willingness to become magical. To be able to experience sacred sexuality, a seeker must release those thoughts of himself which limit him. He must find it within himself to accept himself just as he is, to fall in love with himself, casting aside all thought of self-improvement or self-judgment. The beginning of the seeker's transition to the magical personality is his total acceptance of himself as he is. We believe that this is perhaps the critical difficulty with sacred sexuality and is that limiting factor which keeps many from experiencing the full freedom and beauty of sacred sexuality. Think of yourself not as you see yourself in the mirror, but as you feel yourself when you pray for what you most dearly wish. See yourself not as a physical being, but as a dreamer, a hoper, a lover of the light, an idealist. See those energies of intention that have nothing to do with the manifestations of the world. This is the beginning of the magical personality, to perceive yourself more truly than you can with the mirrors of the world. And finally, we would note the impossibility of creating sacred sexuality without context. Such has often been attempted by those who would like to take a shortcut and who perhaps are unable to sustain a committed personal relationship for the length of time that it takes to establish a safe haven where two can trust that they shall not be harmed. Many are those who have attempted to create sacred sexuality by the use of objects such as prostitutes, where all the work of the magician is done by one entity in solitude using the object in order to express this actual sexual energy. This shall never become true sacred sexuality, for there is no energy exchange. In higher densities, this shall be much clearer, for in higher densities, entities exchange the dynamic between them upon meeting, and so experience a kind of orgasm simply by shaking hands and saying hello, shall we say. There is nothing hidden or shameful. All energies are accepted as clean and beautiful, so entities dwell in an atmosphere of the exchanging of energies at all times. You who dwell within the veil do not have that luxury, and so in order to become able to practice as priest and priestess in sacred sexuality, you must create with another that safe place that enables trust and faith to reign supreme. How precious such a relationship is and how much it has to offer. Before we leave this subject, we would note that including the Creator in all that you do is the way to create your life as magical. The Creator is not out there unless you allow the Creator to be far off. The Creator is intimate with you in a very sexual way. As you move through your everyday chores, invite the Creator to come into your life in power and mean it, and watch your life transform. You will find yourself exchanging energy in a far more transparent way and seeing the energy expenditures of others around you. You will feel the energy of the sun and share with that energy, giving your love back to it. And so an energy exchange is made with the daylight itself. You can do that with each and everything with which you come in contact. May we ask if there's a follow-up to this query? Jim says, we don't have a follow-up to that particular query, but G has given me one that he would like to have asked. Quo, I've been distributing, promoting, and ingesting a substance known as white gold for almost 10 years. It's a legal substance. New information from another channel has presented itself to me, which suggests there may be a negative consequence to the DNA of the entity ingesting the substance. I'm deeply concerned that there may be some validity to this statement, and I'm worried that if it's true, that I may be in ignorance distributing a chemical substance which has negative effects on those who ingest it. Is there any information of a spiritual nature you could offer me involved in the principles of this situation? We are those of Quo and are aware of your query, my brother. The spiritual principle which we would mention at this time in connection with your query is the principle of individuality of response. All is one, yet each entity is as a snowflake, individual and unique. Each unique energy system operates on its own frequency and with its own peculiarities. Therefore, that which may be extremely helpful for one entity may be neutral for another and may be detrimental for another. Only the percentages vary in terms of being true of virtually any energy or substance that is offered. Is there another query? Yes, quote, could you compare and contrast from spiritual perspective the energy exchanges of sacred sex with energy exchanges in other spiritual dimensions of empathy? We are those of Quo and believe we understand your query, my brother. When there is an empathic energy exchange, it is an exchange that does not have the element of sexual touch. The nature of the empathic exchange is not necessarily indigo ray. Empathic exchanges, that is, one entity understanding another to the point where one is able to experience as that entity, are possible in any of the energy centers. So, my brother, we would say that it is different animal in terms of its being in more general and more broad category of energy exchange. Yet certainly it is just as is sexual energy exchange, that closing of circuitry of one kind or another where two entities become one. May we answer you further, my brother? I'm studying a method of providing compassionate empathy in a book called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. I'm not clear what my next question would be about that, but if you see anything spiritual about that, I would be interested. We are those of Quo, and my brother, we encourage you to follow the path of resonance and wish you well with your journey. Is there a final query? We are those of Quo. I have a question about energy exchange. Is there energy exchange between you as an entity that works with the circle of seeking? I understand there is an energy exchange because you work through the channel and you need to connect with the channel, so some energy moves there. But is there a more general energy exchange because this is a circle of seeking and we ask you to join it, so everybody in the circle exchanges energy in some way? We are those of Quo and grasp your query, my brother. The energy exchange betwixt you and us is the energy exchange of creator and creator, equal to equal. The precise nature of the exchange again has to do with the individual. Each energy body is unique, and each energy body has its ways of receiving and giving energy. Not in the specifically sexual sense, but in the sense of having pathways between various of the chakras that are used to working together. This is often a matter that is compounded by the long-held habits of an entity and his tendency to perceive in a certain way. The energy exchange betwixt spirit in general and yourself in incarnation in general is always deepened and strengthened as the seeker avails himself to the silence and practices meditation, and thus becomes able to begin to perceive deeper truths about his own nature. The more deeply that is possible for you as an entity to go in, opening up and revealing your inner self in terms of opening contact with us, the more able that we are to become one with you in a very intimate way as we collaborate together to create an instrument whereby perhaps those who seek may find good resources and information for their spiritual journey. When the dedication is set to serve as a channel, and when the self has been opened up fearlessly to that possibility, the stage is set for the most efficient and deep energy exchange betwixt those of us of the time-space realm and you in the space-time realm. It is a beautiful and mysterious collaboration which is hedged in artistry and energy. It is a very creative exchange, as we are sure that you are aware, as you yourself have attempted to open yourself to these energies. May we answer you further, my brother? No, Quo. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for coming in, being repeatedly willing to answer our numerous questions. We are those of Quo and are aware of your thanks, my brother. As you know well, our thanks are just as fervent. It is tremendously fulfilling to us to be able to share our thoughts with you, and hopefully to be of some small service to those of you who seek so valiantly within the veil on planet Earth. The instrument becomes weary, and we would leave this instrument and this group with thanksgiving and joy in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We are known to you as the principle of Quo. Adonai, Adonai. And thus concludes these two channeling sessions. I put these together, the second one dealing with sexual energy exchange, still dealing with it in a magical sort of way, and the awakening of the magical personality. There is a ritual to it, so I felt like it fitted together, and I found that super interesting. They talk about sexual energy exchange a lot as being one of the main catalysts for the transition to a new Venus when they formed a social memory complex, as I discussed with Jim McCarty in my interview. But I found both of these to be quite fascinating, and I do find a certain power in ritual, even though it can be annoying. Certain rituals that we do double their power and effect, and if you have some sort of ritual that you do, such as a meditation or process that you do on a regular basis, then there's a doubling effect. And to me, there's a doubling effect with affirmations. If you're affirming something on a regular basis, that repeatedly becomes a sort of ritual. There are a number of rituals, and another thing that isn't really discussed in here, but a little bit, is when you do a ritual that you're reading in a book that someone else has done, you're invoking those energies. And since all is one, you can start to feel the energies, even though it's your first time. When doing rituals, you bring up the energies of others who have done those rituals. So you're not necessarily creating magic, you're bringing magic from some other time and place, just like we do when we go to church and we do the Holy Communion. But I find it to be fascinating. I would love to get your take on it. Please put a like on this video. It's the only way the YouTube algorithm recognizes my video, and it really helps out. So put a like on this, and please leave a comment. I'd love to know what you think about these particular channelings. In any case, you can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.